It feels like Nick Chubb was at Georgia forever. And I know that's not true. I know that's not the case. It just feels like that because a lot of times big-name running backs at big-name schools don't stay 4 years. They just don't. And in particular, for a guy like Chubb, who a couple of years ago had that devastating leg injury, you would have thought when he came back last season that he would have realized there's a lot of risk staying in college and it would have been time to cut and run to the NFL. But something was in the water down there at Athens, and Kirby Smart got Nick Chubb to stay for 2017. Just weird how it works because a lot of times, like I said, you just don't see this anymore. These big-name running backs, especially if they've got an injury like Chubb had a couple of years ago that he beasted back from, usually that would be your incentive to leave. But it wasn't for Chubb. And he was a part of a team, along with his backfield mate, Sony Michel, that came this close to upending Alabama and winning the national championship. So from a college experience and a college career standpoint, it was a great decision for Nick Chubb to go back. In terms of his NFL draft stock, I feel like it was kind of a neutral move. I really do. Where you're going to hear a lot of people talking about him in terms of his draft stock, when you look at the 2017 running back class with Fournette and McCaffrey and Cook and Kamara, Chubb was going to be a second to third round pick in that class. And going back to school in this particular case didn't really help him a ton, I don't believe. And I don't really think it hurt him because in all likelihood that's probably going to be his draft range this time around in 2018. But let's talk about Nick Chubb a little bit. We've got years of footage on him, so what does he have? He has feature back size and feature back strength. Frankly, he's a man. He's probably 5'11", 225, 230 pounds. Like, he's put together like a little squatty tank. Like, this dude has the size that you want out of a featured back at the NFL level, a between-the-tackles type of pounder of dude. He has dude factor to him. And he runs like a dude. He runs like a man. He runs like a monster. He breaks a ton of tackles with his strength and his physical, straight-ahead running style. He's not afraid of lowering his shoulder. He's comfortable lowering his shoulder. And most importantly of all, let's see if I can say it right the third time, he can make impact, lowering his shoulder. Yes, I said it right. It only took me 3 times, son of a biscuit. But in all seriousness, he's the type of guy that you would bring in goal line situations, short yardage situations. He's a fourth quarter running back in the sense of in the last 4 to 5 minutes when you're trying to salt away a game and hold on to a lead, you have confidence that a Nick Chubb could run in crowded spaces and get you those tough yards. And he combines that with great vision and patience. He makes the most out of his runs. A guy that's really, really good at setting up his blocks, really, really good at seeing the openings, really, really good at seeing what could potentially be open and then being able to react to it. It's one thing to see it. It's another thing to be decisive and react to it, and Chubb does a pretty good job consistently of doing so. And also for a guy with his kind of build and his size and his running style, he's got pretty good cutting ability. He can make some people miss in the open field. He'll actually surprise you a little bit with his jump cut ability, his one cut, his double cuts. He's better than I thought he was going to be in that sense when I watched him back again. Because sometimes you get in trouble when you watch people in live game situations because things can kind of become a blur and you don't always see the real reality of what's going on. You see kind of the end result. So I didn't know that he was as good cutting as he was. It was surprising to me a little bit. He had a little more lateral zuzu, as you would say, than I remembered him having. Then here comes the concerns for Chubb. Number one, he had the bad knee injury a few years ago. Medical is going to be important for him at the combine. I mean, he's been able to stay healthy the last 2 years, but still that injury always be in the back of everybody's mind of what happens if he has another one. Then also looking at it, does he have the burst and speed to be a home run threat in the NFL? You saw it at times at Georgia, especially when he's playing against defenses that had speed on the perimeter. He could struggle to get around the edge. He could struggle to get outside, and sometimes he did like to bounce it outside, and sometimes that's effective against some of the teams you were playing. But when he played against faster defenses, more athletic defenses, he struggled to get the edge, whereas a Sony Michel would have been able to get the edge on that play. And I still wonder if it dates back to that knee injury, because I just don't think he has quite the same burst as he did back in 2015. And now he's 2 years removed from the knee injury. I just don't see that same explosive burst that he once had. He still has some of it, and I'm not trying to make him to seem a slow foot, because he's not. I just wonder if he has the burst and the short area quickness and acceleration to be able to get outside at the NFL level. Now, that's not ultimately where he should be making his money, making his name. It should be between the tackles, yes, but there are going to be times where he's going to have to do that. The design of the offense is going to require him to do so. The defense that you're up against is going to require getting into that type of set, and I just wonder and worry about whether or not he can do that. He also needs a lot of work in the passing game. Wasn't utilized a ton as a pass catcher and wasn't all that great at it. Also, as a pass protector, he leaves quite a bit to be desired. So there's a very big concern that he could end up being a two-down back, that he's the thunder and lightning combination as opposed to being a featured three-down, all-down type of guy. Now, I feel like he has the ability to learn how to be a pass catcher, learn how to be a better pass protector, and he's going to need to be. And, you know, for some teams it might not matter because they might already have their lightning guy. They're looking for thunder, and that's great. But, again, when you talk about spending a day one or day two pick on a guy like Chubb, you would like him to be a three-down back if at all possible. He also has to avoid the tendency to put the ball on the ground. His fumble rate's not quite as bad as Sony Michel, but in the past he's put the ball on the ground a few times. I don't know that it'll be a huge concern for me with him at the NFL level, but guys like him that run with that type of physicality and that type of raw power sometimes forget the ball and put the ball on the ground. And again, similar to his college teammate Michel, if he puts the ball on the ground, it's going to be the quickest path to the bench. When I look at him in general, though, Nick Chubb, I see a more traditional between the tackles type of running back who has some burst. Like I said, I don't know if he's the same burst he had a couple years ago, but he still has some burst. I don't want to, like I said, make him out to seem like a total sloth in the field, because he most certainly is not. And I would imagine, based off of his low center of gravity, the strength, the size, the power, and burst that he runs with, that he will be effective in short yardage and goal line situations when teams also stack the box against him. He'll be okay. Like I said, though, I come back to I wonder if he's going to ever be what he could have been a couple of years ago. But what could help him be a more well-rounded back and have even more impact is working on his abilities in the passing game as a route runner, as a receiver, as a catcher of the football, as a pass protector. It's something that could hold him back, but it's something that could also take him to another level. Now, when I look at Chubb, I see why so many people are more excited about Michel, but to me, they don't grade out that much differently. Now, granted, I've got a slightly lower grade on Nick Chubb, but I've still got a late second-round grade on him. I like Nick Chubb quite a bit. I think there's a potential for some NFL teams to kind of sleep on this dude come draft time. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being a third-round pick. And if he was, somebody's potentially going to get a massive steal because of it. This is a dude that could stick at the NFL level. This is a dude that could be a starter at the NFL level. And if he gets any better as a receiver and as a pass protector, watch out. He'll be a top 2 or 3 running back out of this draft class. And I believe that. I really, really do. And I hope Nick Chubb does. Because I want him to be rewarded for battling back like a beast from that horrible-ass injury he had a couple of years ago and still being the productive player that he was at Georgia and being unselfish enough to be willing to split time with Sony Michel and so on and so forth. I like Chubb a lot, and I think his potential is very high. I don't think he has the highest potential of this draft class, but I think people are going to sleep on him a little bit because you're going to look at other guys that are quicker, shiftier, more explosive, and it's easier to fall in love with those traits sometimes. But then you've got those old kind of bred in the wool, dyed in the wool, red, white, and blue physical running backs. That's how we do football type of guys like a Nick Chubb. And while people will point out that Michel was much more effective against Alabama than a Chubb was, it's easier for a Michel to thrive when Nick Chubb is still the primary guy. Just saying. My NFL comparison for Nick Chubb, at times I saw Marshawn Lynch on film, but the guy he really reminded me the most of, I think, was Jordan Howard. A guy that doesn't have a ton of burst, but occasionally flashes a little bit of burst and can get up on you quicker than you think. Runs with good vision, good patience. I think he's a much better cutter than Jordan Howard is, but they both run angry and break a lot of tackles and will just kind of go under the radar and just be really, really good and really, really solid and not get quite the recognition they deserve because they don't make the big flashy splash plays that some of the other guys do. But Nick Chubb is good. Nick Chubb is really good. And I think it's a crime that so many people are automatically thinking that Sony Michel is so much better than him when it comes to this draft class, because I don't think that's the case at all.